Chosen ones, what I'm about to share might leave you speechless, but you must hear this, because the truth is unfolding right now, and it directly concerns you. If you're watching this, it is not by accident. Every event, every trial, every moment that has led you here is part of a divine plan. God does not make mistakes, and the fact that you have arrived at this message at this exact time is proof that something is shifting in the spiritual realm. There are people who thought they could take what was meant for you and walk away without consequence. They believed they could hide behind silence, that time would erase their wrongdoings, and that greed would be their protection. But what they failed to understand is that debts, especially spiritual ones, do not simply disappear. They accumulate, and now the weight of what they owe has become too great to bear. At first, they convinced themselves that no one would notice. They thought they were clever, thinking that by keeping what was yours, they could secure their own future. But they overlooked one fundamental truth. What is destined for you can never truly belong to someone else. The energy, the blessings, the divine favor that were meant for you cannot be stolen without consequence. They are not just losing what they took, they are losing everything. Like interest piling up on an unpaid loan, their burden is growing day by day, and there is no escape from what is coming. What they took wasn't just money or material wealth. It was something far greater. It was a piece of your destiny, your spiritual inheritance, your divine favor. And because it was never meant for them, it has turned against them. What once felt like a blessing in their hands is now a curse. The foundation they built on stolen ground is cracking beneath them, and no matter how much they try to hold it together, it is falling apart. They thought they could manipulate the natural order, but the truth is this: what was meant for you is never lost. It only grows. Every single resource, every opportunity, every blessing they tried to withhold from you has been multiplying in the background, waiting for the right time to return. And that time is now. Chosen ones, if this message is stirring something deep within you, confirm it by commenting 777 below. Stand in agreement with what is already in motion. And to those who have supported this message through super thanks, your kindness does not go unnoticed. May God multiply everything you have given, returning it to you in ways beyond your imagination. You are truly a blessing, and your faith will not go unrewarded. What is happening now is not just karma, it is divine justice at work. Every person who played a role in taking what belonged to you is now being forced to reckon with the consequences. The more they stole, the faster it slips from their grasp. They thought they could spend, invest, and build their future on what was never theirs to begin with. But they were wrong. Their illusion of security is crumbling, and the weight of their choices is pressing down on them harder than ever before. But why is this happening now? Why is their downfall inevitable? And how does it ensure that your blessings will return to you in even greater measure? Let's uncover the undeniable truth together. God's chosen ones, they're losing everything for stealing your inheritance. At first, they might brush off the unfolding events as nothing more than a temporary setback, an unfortunate twist of fate, or perhaps just bad luck. They may convince themselves that this is simply a rough patch, something that will pass in time. But have you ever wondered how long they can deny the consequences of their actions? How long will they be able to evade the inevitable? Slowly but surely, the truth begins to unravel. Little by little, the carefully constructed world they had built for themselves starts to crumble. Businesses that once thrived, flourishing with success and promise, now begin to falter and fail. Money that should be multiplying mysteriously disappears, and unexpected debts materialize from every direction. Doesn't it make you pause and think, What is it about greed that triggers such an unrelenting chain reaction? How does it bring ruin to every facet of one's life? It is as though each act of greed has set off a domino effect, bringing ruin to every part of their world. Their financial structures, once thought to be unshakable, now show cracks as the weight of what they owe becomes too burdensome to bear. Does this sound familiar to you? The Bible warns in Luke 12:2, "There is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known." Isn't this a powerful reminder that nothing remains hidden forever? God's justice will find its way, even when others think they can hide behind their wealth or power. But this destruction isn't confined to just their finances. The toll on their health begins to show as well. The stress, guilt, and anxiety that plague them now manifest in their physical bodies. Unexplained illnesses surface, and restless nights are filled with worry and regret. The Bible tells us in Proverbs 14:30, "A tranquil heart gives life to the flesh, but envy makes the bones rot." How do you think the weight of their wrongdoings has affected them spiritually and physically? Is it any wonder that their bodies are showing signs of this internal turmoil? As they carry this burden, doctors can't explain what's happening to them, leaving them in confusion. Isn't it almost poetic that their stolen peace is now being repaid with sickness, a clear reminder of the toll of sin? They feel the weight of their choices pressing down on them, almost suffocating. What once felt like a firm, secure grip on their ill-gotten gains now feels more like sinking sand slipping through their fingers. The more they try to hold on to what they've taken, the faster it slips away. In Job 31 verse 8 we read, "Then let me sow and another eat, and let my crops be uprooted." Isn't it fascinating how God allows the plans of the unjust to unravel? The more they try to restore what they lost, the deeper they spiral into chaos and instability. This becomes a vicious cycle, a never-ending downward spiral. Every attempt to fix what is broken leads to even greater setbacks. But you, as one of God's chosen, don't need to chase after revenge. Isn't it reassuring to know that you don't have to force any form of retribution? You can rest in the fact that the natural course of fairness is already at work. What is it about God's justice that makes it so certain and inevitable? Psalm 37:9 assures us, "For those who are evil will be destroyed, but those who hope in the Lord will inherit the land." You may not see it immediately, but His justice is unfolding, and it is intensely personal for you. Everything they stole from you, every asset, every possession, every ounce of what was rightfully yours will be repaid. And not just repaid, but repaid with interest. The very forces that govern the balance of life are ensuring that what was stolen is returned, multiplied, and made more powerful than it was before. As Galatians 6:7 reminds us, "Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows." Can you imagine how their stolen wealth will come back to you, amplified by God's hand? Just like the story of the prodigal son in Luke 15, when the time is right, the lost inheritance will be restored, far beyond what it ever could have been had it stayed in their hands. Do you believe God will make this restoration happen for you? They may have thought they locked away their wealth, safely hidden from view, but no matter how hard they try to hold on to it, the wealth keeps slipping away. It's as though an invisible hand is at work, ensuring that every stolen dollar finds its way back to you, multiplied. Take the example of Bernard Madoff, who built his empire through deception, stealing billions from unsuspecting investors. In the end, everything he took came crashing down. He was sentenced to prison, and his wealth vanished. The stolen riches didn't stay with him. They were returned to those who had been wronged. And just like Madoff, the wealth that was stolen from you will eventually find its way back, restored by the justice of God. As Romans 12:19 tells us, "Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath, for it is written, 'It is mine to avenge, I will repay,' says the Lord." Do you trust that God's timing is perfect and that He will make things right for you? When He does, it will not only be a restoration, but it will come back more powerful, more abundant, and more life-changing than ever before. At first, they may have shrugged off their misfortunes, attributing them to external factors, things like the economy, bad luck, or small miscalculations. Yet, as the setbacks continue, it's hard to ignore the truth. The dominoes keep falling, profits vanish, opportunities slip through their fingers, and losses stack up higher with each passing day. Isn't it curious how, at first, they believed these were just isolated incidents? But now, the unplanned expenses seem relentless. A broken appliance here, an unexpected legal issue there, or a medical bill that drains their savings in the blink of an eye. Could it be that what they initially saw as mere bad luck is something much deeper? The Bible speaks of how sin and deceit can lead to the downfall of those who think they can outwit divine justice. Proverbs 11:18 tells us, "The wicked man does deceptive work, but he who sows righteousness will have a sure reward." Isn't it fascinating how these so-called misfortunes are starting to pile up, almost as if their actions have set a course that is now working its way back to them? They may not see it yet, but every expense, every lost opportunity, and every failing asset is a sign of the imbalance they created. In their frantic attempts to stop the financial bleeding, they resort to desperate measures, trying to restore what they once thought was theirs to keep. But no matter how hard they work, nothing seems to work. Can you imagine how this must feel, to be constantly battling an invisible force that keeps stripping away everything you've built? This isn't just a string of unfortunate events or simple bad luck. It's the correction of the imbalance they set in motion with their own actions. Their wealth, which once felt like a fortress, is now becoming a source of stress and constraint. What once seemed like security has transformed into a chain, tightening around them with every passing moment. Their once sturdy foundation now resembles a bottomless pit, swallowing everything they try to build upon it. How long will they be able to hold on before it all crumbles? They believed they could secure their future with stolen wealth, but it was never meant to stay in their hands. The more they try to retain it, the faster it slips away. Isn't it fascinating that God, in His justice, doesn't need to confront them directly? He simply allows the natural order to take its course. The debt they owe must be repaid, and there's no escaping it. As Romans 2:6 reminds us, God will repay each person according to what they have done. Have you ever seen the way that the universe seems to right itself when someone wrongs another? It's not always immediate, but it always happens. Piece by piece, every dollar they thought was safely tucked away is being stripped away, not through acts of vengeance, but through forces far greater than any human hands could control. This is not about revenge, it's about balance, the divine principle that ensures every stolen resource finds its way back to its rightful owner. Do you ever wonder how God works behind the scenes, setting everything right, even when we don't see it happening? As everything they built begins to unravel, their once prideful possessions fall apart. The house they once boasted about now requires endless repairs. Pipes burst, electrical systems fail, and damages occur so frequently that it seems as if they can't catch a break. No matter how much effort they pour into fixing one issue, another one springs up immediately. Have you ever watched someone try to fix something only to have the problem multiply? It's almost as if they're fighting a battle they can't win. And it doesn't end with their property. Even their vehicles, which they purchased to enjoy a life of luxury, are now burdened with constant repairs. The car they thought would symbolize success now spends more time in the repair shop than on the road. Doesn't it seem like everything they touch turns to dust? It's as though every asset they possess has turned against them, rejecting the very idea of wealth gained through deceit and greed. What does this say about the way we are meant to live? With integrity, not by taking from others to secure our own future. Consider the story of the famous financial mogul, Bernie Madoff. For years, he built his empire by deceiving investors, hiding his fraudulent scheme behind a facade of success. But in the end, everything he had worked for came crashing down, and those who had been wronged saw their losses restored, while Madoff himself was left with nothing. His wealth, gained through deceit, slipped away, just as God's justice ensures that those who wrong others will face the consequences. Isn't it incredible how God's justice unfolds in ways that no one can predict? In the end, their efforts to cling to stolen wealth will be futile. As Jesus says in Matthew 6:19-21, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Isn't it interesting how the pursuit of earthly treasures ultimately leads to their own destruction? They will realize too late that their attempts to secure what wasn't theirs have only brought them deeper into ruin, while you, God's chosen, are on the path to restoration. They once believed that by securing their future through ill-gotten gains, they were laying the groundwork for a lasting legacy. But in reality, they were unknowingly setting themselves up for a series of inevitable losses. Losses that only deepen over time. Every dollar stolen has transformed into a heavy burden, a constant drain on their resources that leaves them further away from any real sense of security. Do you ever wonder how someone can keep chasing after something that slips away every time they grasp it? This is the cycle they're trapped in. No matter how hard they try to replace or repair what's been lost, nothing endures. The truth is, what they took was never meant to prosper in their hands. Proverbs 10:2 reminds us, "Treasures gained by wickedness do not profit, but righteousness delivers from death." Isn't it clear that when wealth is acquired through deceit, it cannot stand the test of time? They assumed they could build a strong foundation on land that was never theirs. But now, the inherent instability of that foundation is becoming undeniable. Every time they attempt to fix one issue, another pops up, as if their resources are being consumed by an invisible force. Have you ever witnessed someone work tirelessly, only to see their efforts evaporate with every step? As they watch their possessions deteriorate and their money slip away into repairs that never truly resolve the issues, the harsh truth begins to sink in. They didn't just steal money, they stole problems that no amount of effort or resources can fix. In their misguided attempt to secure a future based on stolen resources, they failed to realize something profound. Wealth acquired through deceit and greed can never offer true stability. This is why what should have been their breakthrough has instead turned into a dead end. Every door they open leads to another obstacle. Every risk they take, every desperate move to regain what they falsely claim as theirs, only results in another loss. Can you imagine how exhausting it must be to fight against a force that keeps pulling you downward, no matter how hard you struggle? Meanwhile, as they continue to struggle with one setback after another, your path is clearing effortlessly. You don't need to chase after opportunities or manipulate situations. As Proverbs 10:22 says, "The blessing of the Lord brings wealth without painful toil for it." Isn't it remarkable how God's plan for you will unfold naturally, without force or deceit? While they clung to their stolen resources, the real wealth, your inheritance, was always meant to flow to you. No one can stop this process, no one can block it, and certainly no one can reverse it. The more they try to hold on to what isn't theirs, the deeper they sink into their own troubles, while every step you take, in true alignment with your purpose, propels you upward. This is not about luck or coincidence. It is simply the natural order at work. Their every attempt to hold on to a future built on theft only accelerates their own downfall. Meanwhile, in the very same moment, your future becomes clearer, stronger, and more certain. Do you ever wonder how it feels to be walking in divine alignment with the Creator, knowing that everything you need is already on its way? This process is governed by an unyielding balance, one where every wrong finds its correction. Romans 12:19 reminds us, "Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath, for it is written, 'It is mine to avenge, I will repay,' says the Lord." Isn't it comforting to know that God is the one who will repay what has been taken, and He does it with perfect justice? In this unrelenting system of divine justice, nothing stolen remains untouched by the inevitable rebalancing of the scales. The more they accumulate through dishonest means, the faster their losses mount. The Bible makes it clear, "Whoever sows injustice will reap disaster," Proverbs 22:8. Their stubborn refusal to return what is rightfully yours only intensifies the consequences they face. As they continue down this path, unaware of the forces working against them, you walk steadily toward the blessings that are rightfully yours, knowing that nothing can derail the divine plan for your life. Each setback they face, every misfortune that befalls them, is a direct reflection of the imbalance they have created through their own actions. It's as if the very universe itself is keeping meticulous score, ensuring that every act of greed is repaid in full, with interest added to every stolen moment and every misappropriated dollar. Have you ever wondered how the laws of fairness truly operate? How the balance of life works to ensure that justice is eventually served? The Bible reminds us in Proverbs 11:1, "The Lord detests dishonest scales, but accurate weights find favor with Him." Isn't it powerful to know that God keeps an exact accounting of everything, and no injustice goes unnoticed? Their financial misadventures are a clear sign of this imbalance. Businesses that once flourished are now collapsing, and every deal seems to backfire. They watch as their profits evaporate into thin air, their opportunities slipping through their fingers like sand. The never-ending string of repairs, the decline of their health, and the pressure mounting on every aspect of their lives point to a fundamental truth. What they took was never meant to stay in their hands. In a way, do you see how these failures are a consequence of their own choices? It's almost as if every wrong move they make is a reminder that nothing built on dishonesty can stand the test of time. This intricate balance of life doesn't let any wrong go unaddressed. Every act of theft, every attempt to manipulate and control, sets off a chain reaction that ultimately leads to their own undoing. Can you imagine the frustration they must feel as deal after deal falls apart, as opportunities slip by, and as every effort to salvage what's left only deepens their desperation? The Bible warns in Luke 16:10, "Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much, and whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much." Isn't it clear that their dishonesty has caused them to lose everything they thought was secure? With every failure, they draw closer to the inevitable moment when everything they built on stolen ground crumbles into nothing. In a way, this cycle of failure is almost self-perpetuating. Each setback leads to another, and the pressure grows heavier. Their past choices continue to haunt them, showing them that the money they once believed would secure their future is nothing more than a burden, a debt they can never escape. Have you noticed how their every effort to patch up the cracks only deepens the divide? They try to hold on to the stolen wealth, but it keeps slipping away, as though it's not meant to stay with them. As they sink deeper into the mess of their own making, do you wonder how long it will take before they realize that their future is no longer theirs to control? Meanwhile, your path is growing brighter. You don't have to chase after them or force anything. Your future is already set in motion. Every time they sink deeper into their quagmire, your opportunities grow clearer and more accessible. As they cling to their stolen gains, the scales of justice tip in your favor. It's almost as if every act of greed they commit accelerates the return of what is rightfully yours. The Bible speaks of this restoration in Joel 2:25. I will repay you for the years the locusts have eaten. Isn't it comforting to know that whatever was lost to you will be restored, multiplied and more abundant than ever? Their attempts to secure a future with resources that were never meant for them have set them on a path of continual loss and decline. Isn't it ironic that the more they try to hold on, the more they lose? Each effort to grasp what was never theirs only deepens the instability they've created for themselves. Meanwhile, your future, built on integrity, on what is genuinely yours, becomes more and more abundant with every passing day. And this is no coincidence. It is the natural, unbreakable order of life at work, just as it is written in Romans 8:28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Do you see how, in the end, what is rightfully yours will always find its way back to you, stronger and more vibrant than before? It's not a matter of luck or chance. It is the divine law of restoration. No stolen fortune can ever withstand what was always destined for you. They may have convinced themselves that by keeping your rightful inheritance locked away, they were preserving the family's legacy. They argued that you didn't deserve it, or that you lacked the wisdom to manage it properly. In their minds, by denying you what was rightfully yours, they were acting in the family's best interest, making a noble sacrifice for the sake of generational wealth. But in reality, their actions were driven by pure greed and a hunger for control. Have you ever wondered how easily people can deceive themselves into thinking their selfish actions are for the greater good? Proverbs 14:12 reminds us, there is a way that appears to be right, but in the end it leads to death. This was the path they chose, believing they were building a legacy, but in truth they were sowing seeds of destruction. They craved control and power, desiring to keep the wealth in their own hands rather than letting it enrich you. They believed that by shutting you out, they were securing their future and keeping you perpetually beneath them. But in the end, what they failed to realize was that their efforts to maintain control were weakening them. Instead of strengthening their position, their actions were unraveling everything they had worked for. Proverbs 11:1 states, "The Lord detests dishonest scales, but accurate weights find favor with him." They built their fortune on dishonest means, believing it would last, but now their financial security is crumbling. Savings are vanishing, assets rapidly depreciating, and the money they thought they were protecting is slipping away. This is the inevitable consequence of hoarding wealth through deception. It always turns into a curse. They imagined they were constructing an impregnable fortress to protect their ill-gotten gains, but all they built was a prison, a vault so tightly sealed that now even they find themselves trapped inside it. Isn't it ironic how what they thought would give them power and control is now their greatest weakness? They longed to dominate the family's resources, to keep it all for themselves, but now they watch helplessly as everything evaporates around them. Unexpected bills, legal disputes, and mounting financial instability have all come crashing down on them in ways they never predicted. Does it make you wonder how often the pursuit of control leads to chaos? Isaiah 55:7 reminds us, "Let the wicked forsake their ways and the unrighteous their thoughts." Had they chosen the right path, they might have preserved their own stability, but now they are paying the price for their greed. While they bear the crushing weight of their own greed, you are rising. As you move forward, rising above a system that was never designed for you to struggle or be deprived, the natural order is beginning to restore what was taken. The more they try to hold on to their stolen wealth, the more it slips away. The more they struggle to keep what was never meant for them, the brighter your path becomes. In the irony of their downfall, can you see how the very assets they tried to guard are now the instruments of their undoing? This is the justice of God at work, aligning the balance of what was taken and what was meant for you. The Bible assures us in Romans 8:28, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." The very thing they tried to hoard is now slipping through their fingers, and your rightful inheritance is being returned to you. Wealth destined for you will never yield the false sense of security they craved. Every dollar they clutched so tightly is now compounding into an ever-growing debt, a debt that multiplies with each year they refuse to amend their ways. Their losses have doubled, and now it seems too late to reverse. Their inability to correct their course is evident in the increasing instability surrounding them. The Bible warns us in Galatians 6:7, "Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows." They have sown greed and dishonesty, and now they are reaping the consequences of their actions. Their attempt to secure their future with resources that were never theirs has only set them on a path of continual loss and decline. Meanwhile, your future, built on the foundation of what is truly yours, is growing more abundant with each passing day. Isn't it fascinating how the balance of life, as ordained by God, always rights the wrongs? As they sink deeper into the quagmire they've created, you are ascending, moving ever closer to the destiny that was always meant for you. The more they cling to what they have stolen, the more they lose, and the more the scales tip in your favor. You, God's chosen, will see what was meant for you restored, not just in the same measure, but magnified far beyond what they could ever have imagined. The course of events, the walls are closing in, the burden becomes unbearable, and the very ground on which they built their empire is starting to fracture. They can see it all unfolding, the financial turbulence, the cascade of unforeseen disasters, and the gradual disintegration of everything erected on ill-gotten gains. Yet still they resist. They stubbornly cling to what was never theirs and fight against the inevitable force that is pulling it all away. But the longer they hold out, the harsher the reckoning becomes. What might have been a straightforward return eventually escalates into a full-scale reckoning, because the debt incurred from deceit doesn't just vanish, it multiplies. They fought relentlessly to hold on to what never belonged to them. They hoarded, manipulated, and consistently resisted every chance to rectify their wrongdoings. The more they clung to your inheritance, the faster they lost everything. They believed that denying you what was rightfully yours would somehow grant them power, that by blocking your blessings, they could secure their own future. They thought that by standing in your way, they could always remain one step ahead. But the universe, or the natural order of things, had other plans. The moment they chose greed over fairness, they set off a chain reaction, a reversal so profound that it is now tearing their world apart. The very force they attempted to block is the one undoing them, and as they spiral downward, you continue to rise. The energy they once stifled is now propelling you forward. Opportunities are emerging, doors are swinging open, and wealth is aligning in your favor. In a twist of fate, even those who supported your rightful claim are now reaping unexpected rewards. People who stood by your side are seeing their own enterprises thrive, their finances improve, and their lives move toward abundance, all because they chose to align with the truth. Meanwhile, those who clung to deception and false security see their lives unraveling before their eyes. Their stability is collapsing, and their attempts to hoard ill-gotten gains have backfired in spectacular fashion. It is almost as if the universe is declaring unequivocally that what is stolen will never prosper, and what is naturally meant for you will never be denied. They thought that by safeguarding their fortune through these unethical means, they were securing their future. But in reality, they were only setting themselves up for a series of irreversible losses. Instead of nurturing a legacy that could have flourished with time, they chose a path of selfishness and short-term gain, and now the repercussions are catching up with them. Their obsession with control has turned into a self-imposed trap, where every attempt to hoard what wasn't theirs only deepens the fissures in their own lives. The wealth they clung to, believing it would keep them on top, has transformed into a relentless burden, a burden that compounds with every passing year. Their mismanaged funds, their overvalued assets, and their misguided attempts at preserving what they falsely claimed as their own have all begun to crumble. Unexpected expenses keep emerging, turning every corner into another reminder of their mounting failures. Bills they never anticipated, legal battles they cannot win, and a cascade of financial misfortunes have left them scrambling to keep up with debts that grow ever larger, each dollar multiplying the weight of their guilt and regret. In this vicious cycle, every ounce of wealth they secured for themselves has morphed into a trap that holds them captive in a never-ending spiral of loss. The fortress they built with greed has now become a prison, where the very walls are closing in and leaving no room for escape. As the domino effect of their choices continues to unfold, they find themselves facing the harsh truth that every act of theft and every instance of hoarding has sown the seeds of their own undoing. Their belief that they were protecting the family's legacy by locking you out of what was meant for you has backfired disastrously. The more they tried to keep you from your rightful share, the more they sabotaged their own financial stability. Their savings are evaporating, investments are faltering, and assets once considered secure are now rapidly depreciating. Instead of becoming a source of strength, their ill-gotten gains are turning into liabilities, weighing them down and dragging them into deeper turmoil. The same wealth they thought they were shielding has now become a curse, a relentless chain that binds them to a future filled with regret and diminishing returns. They built their entire existence on a shaky foundation of stolen gains, and as the cracks widen and the structure weakens, it's clear that nothing they do can reverse the inevitable collapse. Meanwhile, while they are busy clinging to a system that was never meant to benefit them, you are steadily rising above the chaos. Your path is becoming clearer with every misstep they take. Their misguided efforts to hoard resources and control the flow of wealth have only accelerated their downfall, and as their world crumbles, you find that opportunities, which were once locked away, are now coming to you effortlessly. The energy they suppressed out of greed is now propelling you forward, opening doors that had long been closed and creating chances that seem almost too perfect to be true. Even those who once sided with them, who thought that aligning with their methods would secure their own future, are now reaping unexpected rewards. Their businesses are starting to flourish, their finances are finding balance, and they are beginning to enjoy the kind of prosperity that comes from aligning with a natural, unforced flow of abundance. It's a striking contrast. Those who chose the path of deception and control are now witnessing the collapse of their once impenetrable systems, while you, who embraced what was genuinely meant for you, are stepping into a future of undeniable promise. The reversal is as swift as it's brutal. Every dollar they kept, every bit of wealth they hoarded, is now working against them, multiplying into a debt that grows exponentially with time. Their refusal to acknowledge the truth that wealth obtained by dishonest means can never bring true security has only deepened their financial and emotional instability. Each year that passes without making things right sees their losses double, their resources dwindle further, and their once confident grip on their fortunes slip away into nothingness. The foundation they so carefully constructed on stolen grounds is crumbling under the pressure of its own contradictions. They see the signs all around them: financial instability, unforeseen calamities, and a slow but steady dismantling of everything they worked so hard to build. Yet, even as the inevitable collapse draws nearer, they continue to resist, clinging stubbornly to what was never theirs to begin with. Their efforts to hold on to stolen wealth only serve to accelerate the process of their own ruin, as if each act of resistance adds fuel to the fire of their impending reckoning. It is a scenario that unfolds with relentless logic, a logic that makes it clear that what was stolen can never be rightfully enjoyed by those who took it. The debt they've incurred is not just a matter of lost money or crumbling assets. It is a deep systemic imbalance that reflects the very nature of their actions. What should have been a straightforward repayment has transformed into a punitive measure that magnifies every wrong they committed. The more they attempt to cover up their misdeeds, the faster the consequences catch up with them. Their attempts to patch up the damage only result in further instability, as every effort to fix what was broken only reveals more cracks in the already fragile structure of their wealth. It's as if the very universe or the natural order of things has taken notice, and it is now methodically reclaiming what was always meant to be yours, leaving them with nothing but the bitter taste of their own failure. Even as they scramble to stop the downward spiral, their actions only hasten the process. Every financial setback, every unexpected expense, and every faltering business deal reinforces the harsh reality that their greed has sealed their fate. They once believed that by keeping you from accessing what was rightfully yours, they could somehow elevate their own status, ensuring a future of control and dominance. But in the end, their actions have only sown the seeds of their own destruction. Their wealth, accumulated through manipulation and deceit, is now slipping through their fingers faster than they can grasp it. It's a relentless reminder that no amount of hoarded fortune can ever stand against what was always destined for you. The more they resist the natural flow of what is meant to be, the more they find themselves locked in a battle that they cannot win, a battle where every moment of defiance only brings them closer to the edge of an unavoidable collapse. In this unfolding drama, it becomes clear that those who try to deny you your rightful share are not just losing money, they are losing everything. Their failure to honor the natural order of things, their insistence on controlling wealth that was never theirs to control, has left them in a state of constant decline. Their attempts to maintain a facade of stability have crumbled under the weight of mounting debts and relentless misfortunes. It is as if every stolen dollar carries with it a reminder of their betrayal, a marker of their inevitable downfall. The structure of their lives, built on deception and a relentless quest for control, is disintegrating piece by piece. In the midst of this chaos, while they are consumed by the consequences of their own making, you are finding that the path to your own destiny is becoming clearer and more accessible. Their world, once held together by fragile threads of deceit, is unraveling with each passing day. Every effort they make to secure their own future only accelerates the process of their undoing. They try to salvage what remains, desperately clinging to a semblance of power and control. But the reality is that every resource they hoarded is now being reclaimed, magnified, and redirected toward you. It is an inescapable cycle, one where the more they try to suppress the natural order, the more forcefully it pushes back. What they once thought was a safeguard for their own interests has now become the very thing that undermines them. Each missed opportunity, each moment of resistance adds another layer to the mounting debt they owe, not just in terms of money, but in the very fabric of their lives. Their financial missteps have transformed into an overwhelming burden that they can no longer bear, a burden that grows heavier with every act of selfishness. And so, as their systems collapse and their wealth evaporates, the truth becomes undeniable. You are meant to receive what is rightfully yours, and no one can stop that flow. The very energy they tried to hoard for themselves is now working in your favor, clearing away the obstacles that once barred your path. Their downfall is not a distant possibility. It is happening right now, unfolding in real time. Every act of greed and every attempt to withhold what was meant for you only accelerates the process. Even those who once sided with their misguided plans are beginning to feel the impact as their own fortunes shift and opportunities align in unexpected ways. It's a transformation that leaves no doubt. What is divinely assigned, what is naturally meant to be, will always find a way to reach its destination. In the midst of this unfolding chaos, you continue to rise, step by step, unburdened by the weight of their misdeeds. The obstacles that once seemed insurmountable are dissolving, replaced by a steady stream of opportunities that come your way effortlessly. The energy that they fought so hard to suppress is now a driving force behind your progress, a force that opens new doors and creates a path forward filled with promise and potential. It is as if the entire universe is aligning to ensure that you receive what is rightfully yours, regardless of the obstacles that others may try to put in your way. Their attempts to secure their own future by blocking your path have only set the stage for their own undoing, while paving the way for your inevitable ascent. Every action they took to divert what was meant for you now backfires, creating a powerful current that lifts you higher. As their wealth disintegrates into a series of mounting debts and their carefully constructed plans crumble into dust, you find that the natural flow of abundance is unstoppable. The more they tried to hide and hoard, the more conspicuous their downfall has become. A stark reminder that what is truly meant for you will never be kept at bay. Their financial ruin is not just a series of isolated incidents, but a coherent narrative of cause and effect, where each act of greed builds upon the last, leading to a final, irreversible reckoning. And as this process unfolds, the doors that once remained firmly closed for you are now swinging open, one after another, revealing a future that is richer, brighter, and more aligned with your true destiny. The collapse of their empire is as inevitable as it is complete. Every failed investment, every unforeseen expense, every crumbling asset is a testament to the truth that wealth obtained through deception can never endure. Their lives, once built on a foundation of stolen gains, are now marred by instability, loss, and a growing sense of desperation. They had believed that by keeping you away from what was rightfully yours, they were protecting their own interests. But the irony is that their actions have only served to hasten their downfall. The very resources they hoarded with such determination are now being transformed into liabilities, a relentless force that they cannot control. It is a bitter lesson in cause and effect. The more they tried to hold on to what wasn't theirs, the faster they lost everything that they thought defined their success. Now, as the balance of fortune shifts with every moment, you stand at the threshold of a new era, one where what was always meant for you is being restored, multiplied, and redirected in your favor. Their struggle to maintain control has not only failed, but it has also become a powerful catalyst for your rise. The natural order of things is not one that can be defied. It is a force that ensures that what belongs to you will eventually find its way back into your hands, stronger and more abundant than ever before. Every misstep they made, every opportunity they squandered, and every attempt to divert the course of destiny now serves as a stepping stone for your own progress. Even as they face the consequences of their actions, your journey continues unabated, propelled by the unyielding current of fairness and balance that governs all things. In this ongoing saga of wealth and downfall, it is clear that their greed has become their undoing. And what they failed to recognize all along is that by holding you back, they were only holding themselves back from the true prosperity that lies ahead. Their struggles, their mounting losses, and the crumbling of their ill-gotten gains all point to a simple, unyielding truth, that what is naturally destined for you will never be denied. And as you move forward with the flow of abundance and the opening of countless opportunities, their fate serves as a stark reminder of the cost of betrayal and the unbreakable force of destiny. The more they resisted, the more they fell into the trap of their own making. And now, with each passing moment, you rise further into a future that is bright, clear, and undeniably yours. They are witnessing everything they built crumble beneath them, not because someone is out to get them or because they are being punished by an external force, but because betrayal always carries a heavy cost that must be paid in full. They see it unfolding before their eyes, watching as everything they once held dear turns against them, just as they turned against you. What they took from you was never merely money. It was your peace, your trust, a connection to something far greater than themselves. Now the tables have turned, and they are experiencing the sting of betrayal. Those they once trusted now deceive them. Business partners they relied on are abandoning them, and loved ones who once stood by their side have suddenly turned away. When you betray someone who was always meant for greatness, you don't just lose their support, you lose the very favor that shielded you throughout your life. No amount of wealth, power, or cunning can bring back what has already been lost. They made their choice, and now they must bear the full burden of that decision. They schemed, fought, and did everything in their power to block you from receiving what was rightfully yours. They convinced themselves that by hoarding your inheritance, they had secured a lasting victory. But they failed to see that your blessings were sealed from the start. No level of greed, deception, or manipulation can override a binding agreement with the natural order. Your inheritance was never just about assets or money. It was about a purpose that no one could truly steal for long. They could pass on what they thought was their prize to their children, hide it away in bank accounts or elaborate trusts, rewrite contracts, forge documents, and shift things in their favor. Yet, nothing they do can ever truly grant them prosperity. For what was never meant for them will never work in their favor. Instead of providing security, it brings stress. Instead of fostering abundance, it only leads to loss. Rather than establishing a legacy, it culminates in ruin. They thought they could rewrite destiny, replant what was already designated for you. But you cannot claim what is meant for someone chosen and expect to keep it. Now, they face a simple choice: either willingly relinquish what is not theirs or have it forcibly taken away and restored to you. It might not occur all at once, but piece by piece, the very things they clung to are slipping away. For nothing in the deeper realms can be claimed if it carries your unmistakable mark. What was always meant for you will eventually find its way back, and by the time they understand this, they will be left with nothing. At first, those who stood by quietly, those who neither directly stole from you nor actively defended you, believed that staying neutral would shield them from the fallout. They assumed that by keeping their distance, they would remain unaffected by the consequences. However, as the slow unravelling continues and the undeniable results of guilt and misdeed become clear, even they begin to see the truth. They watch as everything touched by the guilty starts to fall apart, and suddenly they distance themselves. Family members who once defended the wrongdoers are now stepping back, and those who once ignored you are now watching closely, no longer content to be bystanders. They aren't merely witnessing a series of unfortunate events. They are experiencing their own awakening, realizing that the collapse of your family's wealth was no accident, but the direct consequence of their choices. One by one, they're pulling away, some out of fear of getting caught in the storm, some out of guilt for having remained silent, and others actively aligning themselves with you as they recognize that you were never the problem. They now understand that by distancing themselves from the guilty, they are moving closer to the truth. No one wants to remain on a ship that is clearly sinking, and now the scales have tipped. Even those who once turned their backs on you cannot pretend they haven't seen it all coming. The lines are being drawn, the truth is surfacing, and those who once ignored you are finally realizing which side they should have taken all along. They attempted to block you, to steal from you, to hoard what was always destined to be yours. Convinced that doing so would make them powerful, they believed that denying you your inheritance would secure their own future, that keeping you from what was rightfully yours would keep them ahead. Yet, every act of resistance only fueled your ascent. You were never meant to struggle for scraps or to plead for what was naturally yours. You were never meant to live at their mercy because your inheritance was never truly in their control. Every time they withheld what was yours, every act of deception or manipulation, they inadvertently set off a chain reaction, a multiplication of what was meant to be returned to you. You are not just reclaiming what was stolen, you are receiving it back with an added force. What should have been a simple restoration has transformed into a supernatural compensation. The longer they delayed, the greater your reward became. Their betrayals only expanded your territory, and the years they spent keeping your blessings from you prepared you for a comeback that they cannot ignore. While they sink deeper into the weight of their deception, you rise steadily. As their world collapses, yours expands. As their fortune dwindles, yours is restored with an added boost. Every moment they spend hoarding what was never theirs only paves the way for your elevation. This isn't just about payback. It is about the natural shift of balance, where justice and rightful power return to you. What they thought they could hold on to is now slipping away, returning to you, not because you fought for it or chased it, but simply because it was always destined for you. There is nothing they can do to stop this reversal. Their actions were never solely about accumulating wealth. They were about maintaining control. But control was an illusion from the start. Your inheritance, imbued with purpose and meant to empower you, can never truly be seized by those who operate through deceit. They could have tried to secure it for generations by all means possible, but the truth remains that what belongs to a chosen one cannot be contained by force. Instead of providing them with the security they craved, it brought them endless stress, loss, and eventual ruin. Their attempt to rewrite destiny has failed because destiny cannot be rerouted or rewritten. Now, they stand at a crossroads with only two options: surrender what is not rightfully theirs, or continue on a path that leads to their own downfall. Every act of greed, every instance of manipulation has only served to activate an unstoppable force, a multiplication of what you are meant to receive. With every delay, every betrayal, your eventual return becomes even more powerful. While they scramble to hold on to something that was never theirs to begin with, your inheritance is being restored and multiplied, leaving them to watch as their own wealth crumbles under the weight of their deception. The weight of their theft is now too heavy to bear, and your rise is not a reaction, but a natural course of events in motion. Their downfall is the result of their own choices, not your doing. You don't need to seek revenge or chase after what was stolen. It is returning to you, multiplied and enhanced by the very forces they tried to resist. They can feel it slipping away from their grasp, and you can sense its approach. They are left with nothing but mounting losses while you prepare to receive what is rightfully yours. This is the moment when the balance shifts completely, when you stand firm on solid ground while they desperately search for stability. When everything plays out and the last remnants of their stolen wealth vanish, they will be forced to acknowledge that control was never theirs to hold. In the end, you are the one who was always destined to rise, and their attempts to suppress that destiny have only accelerated their own undoing. Every act of betrayal, every moment they tried to keep you from what was meant for you, has only amplified your eventual reward. What they hoarded, what they delayed, and what they manipulated has all been gathering force, waiting for the moment when it would be released back to you. You were never in need, never lacking, and never beneath them. You were simply waiting for the inevitable shift in balance. Their greed and deception have only served to make your eventual return even greater. And now, the weight of their actions is crushing them. Your rise is not about vengeance. It is about the natural reordering of balance and justice. The power that was stolen is returning to you in ways they never imagined possible. The wealth, the influence, and the security that was always meant to be yours is coming back, not as a mere refund, but as a force multiplied by the delays and betrayals they imposed. In the end, what was always meant for you will not be lost, delayed, or blocked any longer. It is returning with a strength that leaves no room for their interference, marking the moment when the scales tip entirely in your favor. In the final reckoning, the forces that govern true balance ensure that what is destined for you will always prevail. The wrongs committed through betrayal and greed have set into motion an unstoppable process that multiplies what was taken from you. As those who sought to control and hoard your inheritance see their lives disintegrate, you are elevated to a state of restoration that surpasses even your highest expectations. The path to reclaiming your rightful place has never been blocked by mere obstacles. Every act of deceit only accelerated the inevitable return of your blessings. This is not about revenge or retribution. It is about the natural realignment of power and prosperity. The very energy that they tried to suppress now propels you forward, opening doors and opportunities that once seemed out of reach. With every passing moment, your inheritance, imbued with purpose and destined for greatness, gathers strength and returns to you in full measure. In this unfolding transformation, remember that you were never meant to beg or fight for what is naturally yours. It is arriving, multiplied and unstoppable, marking the dawn of your true era of abundance and empowerment. As God's chosen ones, you are destined to live a life of divine purpose and abundant blessing. Your inheritance, what God has prepared for you, is secure, and no one can take it from you. It's a reminder that God's justice is unwavering. Those who attempt to steal what rightfully belongs to you will ultimately find themselves losing everything, because God's will cannot be thwarted. This is a powerful truth that we see throughout Scripture, from Joseph's trials to the restoration of Job's fortunes. Just as God brought Joseph from the pit to the palace, and just as he restored Job beyond what he had lost, he will do the same for you. While the enemy may try to deceive and rob you of your inheritance, you are a child of the King, and your blessing is protected by God. This is why it is so important to stay grounded in faith, trusting in God's divine plan for your life. His promises are yes and amen, and what he has spoken over you will come to pass, no matter the obstacles you face. Your inheritance is not just material, it's peace, purpose, and protection under God's mighty hand. If this message has touched your heart and encouraged your spirit, I invite you to support this channel through Super Thanks. Your support, whether through a donation or a simple like, goes a long way in helping us continue spreading these powerful messages. I want to express my deep gratitude for each and every one of you, whether you choose to give or not. Every act of kindness, whether through your time, your prayers, or your support, is appreciated. Please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this message with someone who needs it today. Also, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear how God is working in your life. Together, let's build a community that supports and uplifts one another. Finally, I pray that God's blessings overflow in your life. May His peace guard your heart. May His wisdom guide your steps, and may His favor rest upon you every day. You are God's chosen ones, and no one can take away the plans He has for your life. Stay encouraged, keep your faith strong, and walk confidently into the future He has prepared for you.